If you ever wondered what would you get if Seiko SKX were modded to look like Rolex Yachtmaster, well, wonder no more, because Merkur created this watch unmistakably taking styling cues from both iconic watches, and now we have it here for review. But is it actually any good? Well, in this video we'll find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. Before we jump into this video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos. You probably noticed a pop-up. Yes, Merkur sent me this watch for free and I don't have to send it back. In return, they asked me for a thorough and objective review, which of course I'm willing to provide, and to point you to their website where they sell, along with this watch, a full catalog of very interesting and diverse watches, including probably one of the most competitively priced tourbillons, military and dive watches, and mechanical chronographs. Looks like they are ever expanding their collection, so do check them out. The link, of course, will be in the description. This watch can be found on Merkur's website for about $126 US. Here we have Merkur's usual packaging. The packaging is definitely reusable as the watch travel case, and I quite like it. Stylish and very robust at the same time. In the box we get the usual attributes: branded cloth, warranty card, signed and dated of course, and user manual, which also doubles as a brief catalog of other Merkur's watches on offer. Merkur also included a bracelet adjustment tool, which is quite handy, and of course the watch. Dimensions. The case measures 42mm 3 to 9 o'clock and the bezel is 41mm in diameter. We have 22mm lugs. The case height is just over 13mm. Not too tall, and because the comfortable cushion case practically molds around the wrist, the watch should slide under the cuff with no problem. Lug tip to lug tip is about 45.5mm, and even measured by protruding end links, the distance is just under 52mm. The end links do curve down, so the watch does look on the wrist somewhat smaller than the 42mm diameter suggests. We will of course do some wrist shots on my about 7-inch wrist later in this video, and also on a 6.25-inch wrist. The supply stainless steel bracelet tapers down to about 18mm at the clasp, and we have a 19mm double pusher clasp here. The full-length bracelet should comfortably cover about 8.25-inch wrist, or about 21 cm. On the fully supplied stainless steel bracelet, this watch weighs about 170 grams. I would expect the weight to drop closer to 150 grams after adjusting it to my about 7-inch wrist, which is good weight for a sport-style watch. We will of course take a closer look at the bracelet later in this video. Dial. Dial is probably one of the key features of this watch. Dial background has somewhat subtle grainy texture and quite an unusual color scheme of gradual transition of green to black. The result is quite interesting and I personally like it. We have a printed minute chapter ring running along the black rehaut. The hour markers are applied and filled with lume. The lume is of somewhat vintagey color, which I think works well with the green background of the dial. Also, the hands have similar color lume, keeping the lume color consistent throughout the dial. The hands have somewhat a Rolexy style, however, there is no Mercedes lines inside of the lollipop hour hand. The hands are of a good length, with both minute and second hand stretching close to the edge of the minute chapter ring. It is also worth noting the cap on top of the pinion. I think it gives the dial a nice and finished look. And in the true SKX style, we of course have a date window. Merkur used white font on a black background for the date and day, which works well with the overall color scheme of the dial. We have the brand name SEIZENN on top of the dial. SEIZENN is one of the brands that Merkur acquired a few years ago. However, I personally think Merkur should have used Merkur on the dial instead. They use it on the clasp, so why not here? And at the bottom of the dial we have a declared water resistance of 200 meters and the word automatic. Now, this is a bit controversial though, because the word divers on the dial usually refers to an ISO 6425 certification, which is unlikely the case here. That aside, I have to say that the quality control is pretty good, similar to other Merkur watches that I've reviewed in the past. Dial execution is very clean, everything aligns, and lume application is quite consistent as well. And of course, the lume quality. Merkur reckons they used Swiss C3 Superluminova. Whatever it is, I must say that the lume is very decent indeed, especially taking into account the price point of this watch. Crystal. We have a flat sapphire crystal here. It sits pretty much flush with the bezel. I couldn't find any mention of AR coating, however I suspect that there is some because the watch maintains pretty good legibility under various viewing angles. Bezel. We have 120 clicks unidirectional bezel. The indices on the all-metal bezel are raised, and it is worth noting that the 12 o'clock marker is not loomed. Coincidentally, there is no lume pip on the Yacht Master either, so when it comes to looks, the bezel looks great in my opinion. However, when it comes to action, there is definitely room for improvement. There is a bit, but not much of a backplay, and grip and resistance is good as well, so there is very little chance to accidentally move the bezel. However, rotating the bezel feels kind of mushy, it is not crisp, and every second click sounds a bit different, adding further to that kind of mushy feeling. Taking into account the price point, looks like this is the corner that Merkur had to cut to deliver this watch at such a competitive price. Another complaint that I have about the bezel is the sharpness of the raised indices. It is not the place you would normally touch the watch, however, if you do, it feels not refined at all. I appreciate that Merkur was going for a sharp, polished facets of the indices, however, I think the indices corners could have been made a bit more refined and smoother. On the positive note though, the bezel aligns perfectly with the indices on the dial. Moving on to the case, what we have here is a very familiar cushion case with a crown at 4 o'clock. I must say that the finishing is quite impressive, especially, again, taking into account the price point of this watch. According to Merkur, they used a combination of high-quality machine polishing and brushing, followed up by a manual finishing of the case. And if we take a closer look at the case, we can see a satin-like brushing on top of the case, followed by a distinctive mirror-polished bevel, which transition into a mirror-polished cushion-like flanks of the case. There are no sharp edges, all the transition finished with a good attention to detail. The screw-down crown at 4 o'clock is signed and protected by the crown guards. The crown threading is smooth and it is easy to grip and operate. I think Merkur could have done the bottom parts of the crown guards a bit smoother, like the top part, but they still don't create a major obstruction, and the crown still can be easily operated as is. The back of the case is brushed, and we have a screw-on back case, which in combination with the screw-down crown allows Merkur to declare 200 meters of water resistance, which makes this watch, of course, very practical and suitable for swimming and maybe even for some recreational diving. Movement. Merkur used Seiko Instruments NH36 automatic movement in this watch. It hacks, that is, the second hand stops when we adjust the time. We can also hand wind this movement, and it features day of the week and date complications. This movement has 24 joules, it beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it has a power reserve of about 41 hours. This is a proven, reliable and dependable movement with a pretty good accuracy. Bracelet. Continuing the SKX theme, Merkur incorporated here what looks like a Jubilee-style bracelet. We have solid end links and solid 5-piece links, with satin brushed outside and mirror-polished center parts, and again mirror-polished sides. The bracelet links and the transitions between the links facets are finished pretty well, making the bracelet quite comfortable. We have push pins here, which is fine at this price point, and they are easy to adjust. There are arrows on the inside of the links pointing in what direction to push the pins if we need to remove them. Merkur used robust and functional double pusher clasp here with secure lock. It is a milled scissor clasp, which is good, however, the body of the clasp is made out of pressed metal. We do have 3 micro adjustments on the clasp, and the clasp is signed, which is good. Overall, the clasp is robust and easy to operate. Here is this 42mm watch on my about 7-inch wrist, and I like the way it fits on my wrist. No surprise that this is such a popular form factor. So, any major complaints about this watch and would I recommend it? Well, couple of points really that I think are worth mentioning. The end links, they are solid, which is good. However, at a close inspection, they are not perfectly flush with the outline of the lugs. There is a definite attempt to make the end links follow the line of the case, however, it is not 100%. Having said that, at the price point of about $125 US, I don't think it is the end of the world. And the bezel action, I think Merkur could have made it a bit more smoother and a bit more premium. As for positives, well, at the price point of just over $125 US, it is a very well finished watch with all the premium materials, robust Seiko instruments movement and quite a strong lume. And it is a good looking watch at that, in my opinion. And of course, I can definitely recommend it if this is the type of watch that you are after. What do you think? Please let us know in the comments. And if you find this review helpful, do smash that like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next one.